All right, I've got top of the hour, 8 o'clock on the West Coast. Good morning to everybody across the United States, and good afternoon and good evening to anybody joining us internationally today. Welcome to week 4 of our 2019 Summer Bootcamp. Today's topic is training records that rock. Here's what we're going to cover today. So we'll go over a quick introduction. I know many of you have joined us for weeks 1 through 3, so that we'll make that short and sweet. Cover today's objective. Give you a little rundown, especially since we have people that are interested in joining the emergency reporting family with us. We'll do a quick background on emergency reporting and our system features. And then we'll get into the boot camp itself. Push-ups for our brain today is on training records. That's me. I'm Tom Lewis, Business Development Analyst with Emergency Reporting, retired Battalion Chief and Paramedic out of the Green Valley Fire District, south of Tucson. I currently reside in Tucson, Arizona. Spent 22 years there. And also, you can see some of my other credentials. And I've been with Emergency Reporting since 2004 as a user, and then became a part-time trainer back in 2011, full-time 2013. And here I am in mid-2019 with all of you. It's been quite a ride, quite an adventure, lots of changes with the company, and just really exciting times. Very blessed to have a second career going now. If there's any audio issues or video issues, just send in like a question to give me a heads up that there are some issues going on. So far, so good. It's showing good audio on my end. So, but if you run into any issues, just don't hesitate to let me know. All right, here's today's objectives. Those of you who've been with us from weeks 1 through 3 know that I like to keep it kind of focused on a particular aspect of our system, and today is no different. What we want to do is show how we can better document training that is, one, user-friendly, and when I say that, I mean firefighter-friendly, almost firefighter-proof, that they can enter their training easily and quickly, and that quickly part is also important, where you're still able to capture a high-quality report, high-quality data, input it into the system as far and consistent entry of data as well. It has to be highly comprehensive, and we'll get into that because that follows NFPA 1401. And then also reports that you can pull out to tell your story for ISO, for accreditation, for just internal documentation, and then individual training reports to see their progress towards completion for their EMS recertification, towards any other fire certifications. Our system does that extremely well and adheres to many of the principles in NFPA 1401. Emergency reporting. So we're one heck of a company, let me tell you. We've got 480,000 personnel system-wide, not emergency reporting employees, but those are the number of people that are entered into our system. Of those, over 165,000 of them are authorized unique users. All that means is not everybody who is in the system has access to the system based on their department policy. So almost 500,000 people in the system, and probably pushing close to now 200,000 authorized unique users. But right now we're saying in a conservative number about 165,000. We serve over 6,700 departments worldwide. We follow the agile software development process, which means we're constantly doing new iterations every 2 weeks. We release every 2 weeks. So those of you new to the ER family, whenever you log in, you are using the latest version of the system. There's nothing to install, and we're constantly making changes to the system, whether it is new features, enhancements, bug fixes. All of that is ongoing every 2 weeks with our development team and product team. So 99.99% uptime and reliability. We hear numbers like that thrown around a lot when it comes to technology and especially software as a service. So I kind of just researched a little bit and did my own math. What does that exactly mean? All right, we aim for that, and we do quite well at meeting that each year. What that means is 525,600 minutes in a year total. Okay, we are up 547.44 minutes throughout the year. That's what's called 4 nines. And so we're looking at 52 and some change minutes that down in an entire year. And that's pretty amazing. So you can trust that usually if there's an outage, it's usually local internet, your router goes down, your local internet is down, and then our many customers in the DoD are struggling with the DoD network currently. But we do our very best to keep a good uptime. 24/7 base support. You will be able to communicate with our team in Bellingham, Washington. That's where our support team is based. You will be able to understand them, and you will have access to them from 0600 to 1800, so 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day for priority 1, 2, and 3 tickets, and then priority 1, which would be a substantial either outage or CAD interruption, that is monitored 24/7. Again, we're talking about the different NFPA compliance standards or NFPA standards that we comply with, and we help you comply with, quite frankly, is NFPA's 1300, 1500, 1700, and then of course we're going to talk about the one today. And we're very proud to be able to serve the entire United States Marine Corps Fire and Emergency Services and the United States Army. And so our pillars on the right are kind of some of our guiding principles, and more of that can be found on our website, emergencyreporting.com, to learn more about our background. System includes 16 modules, many partner interfaces via our robust API, a strong CAD interface. I can't think of one, maybe there's one, a CAD company that we don't interface with. And if your department is interested in having a CAD interface, chances are we can do it. Over 600 system reports, analytics tools for those NFPA standards listed there. We also have an offline capable app called Inspect ER for conducting inspections, having access to critical data about a building during incident management, and it's available for all 3 tablets, iOS, Android, or Windows. It will work on any of those versions, and that app is downloadable from those 3 respective app stores. Keep in mind that there are licenses required to use it. While it's downloadable, it has to be configured within your account and of course purchased. All right, now we want to get to what we're going to talk about today. So the standard for training records is NFPA 1401, and then we've got the latest version is 2017. So I just want to address some of the key elements that are in that document that we're going to cover today. It's an easy to read document. I joke about it, but these standards, if you don't have a library or access to them in your organization, it's worth getting a membership and having them available for the members of your department, especially if you're starting a new program. You want to enhance an existing program, want to make sure you're purchasing the right trucks, things like that. Those standards will help guide you, and they guide us here when it comes to training documentation. So a lot of this particular document is quite common sense, and it's not too technically difficult. So you can see that they state in Chapter 4, Section 2, Paragraph 1, training documents, regardless of their intent or level of sophistication, should focus on content, accuracy, and clarity. And I will add to that consistency. And through our templates in the training module, I'll show you how that works. And then these 5 elements, the 5 W's, you've all probably heard of them, to be able to document all of those elements. Who was the instructor? Who participated? Who was in attendance? Who was included in the training? All of those elements can be captured within our training module. What was covered? What equipment was utilized? If you choose to document that, what operation was evaluated, and what's the stated objective? When did it take place, or will it take place? Where did it take place? And then why was the training necessary? And that kind of adheres to some of our standards or organizational goals for training. And so we're able to capture all of this and kind of adhere quite nicely to 1400 or 1401. Some additional information that they look for. Again, all documentable within our system, and I won't read you this list, but they want to look at the source of information used as the basis for training, method of training used for delivery, and then the evaluation of training objectives. Again, all elements that we'll be able to capture. Chapter 6. So this is the evaluation of the effectiveness of training record systems. And so this is where we'll talk about our JPRs later on. Our reports, of course, extract this data, but JPRs supplement that, and I'll explain how that works. So some of the things I highlighted there, has the individual taken all the required training? We know that's paramount for EMS recertification. It's also part of what departments require, whether it's a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. Do the performance deficiencies show up on the individual's training record? So are they missing anything, as an example? And then number 5 there, have companies met all the required job performance standards established by the department? So I want to walk you through this. A lot of it is going to be how the account's set up and then how you're going to use it moving forward. So we'll get moving with that here momentarily. I like this one on Chapter 7. Most training records should be maintained in their entirety in a computerized form, thus greatly reducing the amount of paper that needs to be stored. So it's not uncommon still to document a lot of what we do in the fire service on paper. So we help you migrate from paper to electronic record keeping, and one of the most important aspects of that is training records. But I like in their appendix, record keeping is not an end in itself. So what I liken that to is the story matters, and the story is the quality of training you're doing, okay? The quality of how you're recording it, sure, but what are you training? Why are you training? Okay, and are you developing your personnel to be a first-rate public safety organization? So think of it like a movie with the way I like to think of it is the reporting part is the special effects. You want those to be good, but if the story isn't any good, then it's just special effects serving the story. Okay, that's how it should be. Special effects, the reports should serve the story of training, okay, and not the other way around. So I like that. Even though we're in the reporting business, the ultimate goal is to make your jobs easier, and I think we do that very effectively with our training module. Okay, and you can see it kind of reiterates there in the lower highlight what I had just mentioned about the performance of the individual and the organization. All right, let's jump into this right now. But before we do that, I'll make sure we can still see my screen. And I want to run a poll here, keep you guys interactive here. So if you happen to be multitasking, take a look up at your screen. We're going to run a couple poll questions here. And a quick hello to Mike Adair out in Canada. Mike, thanks for the message there. Good to have you on board. So we do have some international participation today. First question, what kind of department are you? Are you career, volunteer, combo, federal, DoD, or industrial? We'll give it a few minutes to a few seconds, I should say, to vote. So take a look up at your screen. Almost everybody's voted. We'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, last chance to vote. Almost everybody, 90%. Anybody who hasn't voted, do it now. All right. So here's what we got today participating with us. There's a delay. There we go. All right. So about 40% are career, 45 combo, 13 volunteer. We've got some of our federal DoD personnel on board today as well. No industrial. I added that one new because we're starting to get more interest from industrial fire brigades around the world. So I wanted to see if anybody was joining us from there. All right, one more. Actually, 2 more because I got another one regarding training. We'll knock these out right out of the gate. So are you currently a member of the ER family, you use us, or you're using another RMS but really interested in us? Excellent. Well, good. We'll get quite a few people that are learning more about emergency reporting today. And this is typically the case, but thank you all, especially those of you that have been with us for the past 3 weeks. Thanks for staying with this boot camp. It's going to continue. It's been so successful. We're going to continue it into the fall. All right, we're going to close the poll. So most of you are ER customers. And then we've got over about 11% that are using something else but interested in us. Last question before we get into the core of today's topic. And again, I'm personally curious too, because we have interface capabilities with an LMS, but I really want to know what you guys are using for your learning management system. So we're a records management system. We don't necessarily provide you the content. You can load content, but what are you currently using for your LMS, if at all? And then if you are one of those that are using other, just type in what you're using. I'm kind of curious what you've chosen for your learning management system. And then 34 are none, so you have your own internal training. Let's close that poll out. Take a peek up if you haven't voted. Moodle's one. Okay, very good. I gotta keep that one in mind. Medic CE. All right, I'm gonna close the poll. There's our results. Excellent feedback. Okay, this is really interesting. So we've got some others out there, Moodle, Medic CE, excellent. Those first three seem to be kind of like the dominant market players, and so that's why I put them in there, but it's good to know some of the other ones that are out there. So hey guys, thanks for taking part in this poll, these three polls. It's really helpful to us too as we develop our system, so thank you so much. As we get going, all right, don't go there yet, but I'll be talking about these. In your GoToWebinar control panel, there are 4 handouts. I will be addressing them as we go through the system today. There's one on our job aid for the system reports, a summary of ER, who we are, especially for the 11% of you that are brand new to our company, and then our import document for importing training codes, and a best practice example, and that's all it is an example of the training codes that we've set up in some of our accounts. Those of you that are brand new and learning about, okay, we're exploring different RMSs out there, who do we want to go with? We try to make the transition from either paper or your old RMS as easy as possible. And so we can import training codes, which is a key part of building the training module for success. And we have a full-on implementation team that guides you through the process, helps you with the imports. So you're not alone through the process if you choose to come on over with emergency reporting. And I can speak, I'm going to be biased. I love the company and I love, the organization, the people, and the product, but you can take it from our existing customers, the good aspects of what we do here in the training module. So speaking of the training module, let's talk about settings. This part of our system is the core portion of making sure you get out of the gate right with the training module. I'm going to come back to the main grid, which we just saw, but what I want to show you is these tabs in your system, and navigation is from the home page to the training module to settings, and we've got class categories, training code categories, training codes. In a nutshell, think of these 3 things as, if the training module is a tree, these are the branches within the tree. The class categories are the big branches, of which there are relatively few. You can see they're kind of high-level categories. I'm going to show you another example. And I've got 3 different examples that I want to show you so you can kind of get a feel for it. That other one was a demo account. This is another demo account, kind of a DoD focused, but you can see categories are very high level. EMS, fire, again, they're calling it operations. The next one are the medium-sized branches. These are training code categories. These can get a little bit more specific if you wish. I have seen quite a few customers keep these 2 the same. It's okay to do that. This just allows you a little bit more granularity because this is the folder, okay, the big branches from which these smaller branches, the training codes, branch off of. And so another way to look at it is this is the holding folder for all of these codes. And you want to look here at the middle column. This is the what that you trained on. Remember back at 1401, they want to capture what you trained on. These codes allow you to build what you're training, and you want to keep it just general enough to capture the topic, not necessarily the name of the class, because the class could be combining multiple training codes, and that's perfectly fine and expected, okay? But I just want to show you an example, and then another one, of course, is in your handouts folder there in the GoToWebinar control panel. There's one called the best practices. It shows you another example of how to configure that. But I just want to show you how this one example has been set up. A lot of them are you can base it on the NFPA firefighter standard, and I should know that off the top of my head. Let me go here real quick. I closed it. Okay, but you can base it off of those topics. Again, ladders, forcible entry, those are the topics found in the firefighter standard. Okay, the others are pretty straightforward. Locations is where you have conduct the training, so being able to capture that other W from NFPA 1401, where you can add the locations, you can capture the resources that are used. This is particularly helpful when I show you how we build templates, because you might be the instructor that have taught extrication for years and you're good to go, but you might have a new up and coming instructor that you're bringing along as an apprentice. He or she might need a list of what they need to get prepared for that class. That can be captured here under resources. Task sheet categories, these are the folders of which you can put in task sheets. And the NFPA, our jargon is JPR here, but think of those as training performance requirements. JPRs and NFPA are your your task sheets, your national registry score sheets for starting an IV, raising a 24-foot ladder, applying the traction splint. Those are task sheets, and those can be parked here. They don't have to be parked in our library. They can be parked here, because then you can assign one or more task sheets to a particular class. The general settings. This one, the key things to keep in mind here are these first two. I strongly recommend checking both of these boxes. Now, by default, as a new customer, they are checked. These integrate with our payroll module. Now, don't panic if you're not using our payroll module. You don't have to use it per se for tracking dollars and hours worked and things like that. But the key thing to take away here is, in order to get the most out of the training module, okay, you've got to go here. Just make sure that it looks like this. Enable hourly payroll for training, okay? And again, we're not doing this if your department's which many have their own payroll programs with their municipality. This is just so you get the most out of the training module. And I'll show you how this works in a minute. All right, so we'll set that. And then what the next step you'll want to do is make sure you have a default pay grade of 0. If indeed you're not using, the payroll module for pay, then you will go to bulk update. You will check this box. You will assign a default pay grade, and then check all of the people that will be in that pay grade. This is basically a set it, forget it, and use it moving forward in the training module, where you don't have to check boxes and in each training class. And so you can see this has already been applied here, where they have a default training pay grade. Once you're done here and you don't use the payroll module, you're done. You don't have to visit this again. The other part of settings in this general settings tab is this one, require student verification. This is a newer, without a call out, they're not showing up. This is a newer feature. What this does, everybody, is when you require this, when you put on a class, the student will have to go into their profile to verify that they have taken the class. So think of it as an electronic signature being affixed. So I took Fireground Survival RIT, 60-minute class on August 15th. This, by affixing my signature here, and let me rephrase that, by checking the box and adding my password, that is like adding my signature, and this verifies that I took the class. And I'll show you full circle how this comes into play. This came from our Department of Defense customers because they require a wet signature. Working with them, we were able to come up with a solution that negates the need to have a piece of paper in the class that everybody goes around and signs. That doesn't mean you still can't do it. It's just this is a solution that overcomes that. And this profile is on a per person basis, not administratively controlled. Back to training. Okay, the last element and often overlooked element of setting up the training module is here in standards. Okay, you want to think of standards as things like ISO, NFPA, There was a lot of them, so we'll do this one. Okay, and so this is just one example where you can pull down NFPA standards, ISO standards, and we have that in that document as a best practice. And so what this means, and so follow with me here, training codes is what you trained on. The standards means that I could go do a live fire exercise and both ISO use of facilities, okay, company training can apply to that class. So it gives you the flexibility to apply multiple standards to a single class to get credit for those different standards, say during an ISO audit, or if you're tracking how you're complying with the different NFPA standards in 1001. I thought that's what it was. I just didn't want to say the wrong thing. So that's your firefighter, your standard. And so in this document, let's open this up real quick. All right, I put together just some examples. We've got National Registry, NFPA, and then the standards for ISO. I'll show you how that all comes together here before we wrap up today. So I'm going to take a pause. We've covered the settings. Any questions on the settings? John goes, we run a report for our insurance company. When we run reports for it, we barely get any hours under ISO. Yeah, I can show you that. It's how you're entering it that's going to matter, John, and where you're entering it. Some people choose to do ISO under training code categories, and that will work. I'm just partial to using the standards because it gives you more flexibility in adding multiple standards to a single training class. Otherwise, it could get confusing on how you document those hours. So great question. All right, let's go back to the main grid. All right, so here in the main grid, I want to give you a lay of the land here. Each column, especially for those of you new or just first time seeing this, any new software, no matter how good you are with computers, any new piece of software is always going to be a little disorienting at first. You've got to learn the user interface and understand what the different colors and the different layout does. And so don't be afraid to click around. Sometimes typical mail, we don't read the manual, we go straight into clicking and breaking things and opening things and all of that, but you're not going to break anything. Usually most of what you'll do, you'll be able to recover from if you goof. But here, each column can be sorted ascending or descending. It can be filtered with the second row here. So if I want to look and see, let's see, I want to see all of my apparatus. It filters the grid to show anything that had the name apparatus and the name of the class. I can also sort by category or filter, location that the class took place, who the lead instructor was, how long the class was, its current status. And so let's take a second to talk statuses here. Don't go all, because that'll pull everything down. You want to stay active, okay? Anything that's scheduled, you can filter. Nothing is scheduled, but nothing apparatus anyway is scheduled. Always check your filters. We have some that are incomplete. Typically what this means is that the class has been completed itself, but they haven't finished documenting it. And that the incomplete means it's past its date. And so this will go from scheduled to incomplete if it's not fully documented. Complete, we like that. That means it's one step away from, it's like our NFRS report, it's one step away from being ready to report in the training reports. Reviewed, it means it's been QA'd by a training officer, or in some cases, the instructor is allowed to go ahead and not only complete, but review it at the same time. Very similar to how we do our incidents module. And then of course, the station. These three here, icons, one is to print, and it gives you the power to print a sign-in sheet if you want to go old school. Class information, and I'll just show you what that would look like. It's going to render it usually takes a second to render, and so now you've got, once the class is completed, you've got a summary, who attended, class information, instructors, resources, narrative, codes. So this is Greg Anderson, one of our reps in the West Coast. He does a great job with his demo accounts, and so that's why I'm here. I knew he would have some really good data. And so you can see the breakdown, any files. Now you can't embed a PDF within a PDF, but you can at least see a thumbnail of what files were used. And I give props to Greg again. He did a wonderful job in this particular class in allowing me to show this to you guys. That's the printable view, and that's checking everything. Editing it, we're going to go there momentarily, and then of course archiving the class. You're not fully deleting it. So while we just navigated the grid, and I got a few more questions. We're going to just pause for a second to take a look at those. Let's see, Michael saying, yes, I can create a pay grade of training and use the bulk update to apply training. Yep, sure can. So if volunteers do not have a login, is there a way to have a career member select a verification for the class? Great question, Scott. So what Scott's asking, so let's take a look at all active is what I meant. And so what Scott is asking everybody, and this is a good segue into this part of our presentation, is that here, you've got to verify it. Now, the only way that this can be verified is if the person logs in and accesses their profile. Now, what you can do, Scott, if the volunteers are not permitted to log into the system, a career person or someone with the responsibility would have to log in as them and then verify the class. Okay, but keep in mind too, if you're volunteers, you can grant them just enough permissions to view things and not be able to edit things within the system. So you have that option as well. But again, to let everybody know, in order to verify participation in a class as a student, you have to have access to your profile, and that requires a login to the system. And Andrew's saying, I always use standards more or less as a meta tag. And that's a good way to use it. So we can assign different things to a single class. That's the right way to think, because multiple ISO even standards can apply to a single class. Think of a driver operator course. So let's walk through a whole class right now. Now, this class has been created. I need you to know that you can make a template from the class or make a template from scratch and then make a class from the template. I highly, highly recommend templates, because even if you're not using our JPRs, and our JPRs depend on classes completed from templates, it will allow you to capture consistent data. All of us participating today, and there's like 61 of us online here right now. If we all went out and did an 1 3/4 attack with supply on a second story, chances are we'll get pretty close to getting everything right, but we might add a different training code, or Mike in Canada might add a different training code here, and it won't be consistent for my organization. And so by having a template, you will essentially have the whole class built for you. You just have to add the instructor, adjust the hours if necessary, add your personnel, and it's done. And I'll demonstrate that here, but I want to show you the whole class setup here. Okay, this is another good example. I, again, can't give Greg enough props. Mike, if you're going to assign them a default pay grade, you'll want to check every person in the department if you're going to assign them a default pay grade and you're not using the payroll module for anything else. So I hope that helps. Okay, classes. So the red fields, as those of you familiar with our system know, red is a required field. And class name, that's the name of the class, okay? And it could be extrication review, March 2019. Class category, remember, is pulling from the biggest branch on the tree. It categorizes that class. The station, so many of you that are using our system, the key takeaway here is click this little question, call out. It assigns where this training gets auto-populated in a logbook, not where the training necessarily took place. It certainly could be taking place at Station 10, but this means what logbook do I want this class to populate in, because all of our training, once you complete it, it auto-populates in our daily log. So you don't have to re-enter it to show what you did during the day in the daily log. It will auto-populate. And I'll show you how that works by changing this to today. All right, this is a long day. It's gonna be a 10-hour class. Why? We've got these different categories that we're going to go over, training codes that we're going to go over today. And so they're using NFPA standards here, but they're using it for what you're training on. He's also applying 1002 here as a standard, as is ISO company training. It'd be really hard to try and commingle ISO and NFPA up here in the codes. So this is what you trained on. We're going to spend an hour on each of these, and then these are the standards it applies to. The location is where the training took place, and you can certainly document any objectives here in the free text box. All right, let's see here. What else did I miss? Oh, instructor. One thing on the instructor is you can add outside instructors. All right, and you have the ability to have lead, assistants, and evaluators to capture all the people helping out with the class. And then one of the aspects of NFPA 1401 is the evaluation method. And so we've got 4 choices here. Any questions on the info tab? And Mike's got a question about the narrative kept in a template. We're going to go right there next. Okay. And Michael A., I've got your question on deck as well. So the narrative. This is a free text field. Now, I strongly recommend, again, going back to NFPA 1401, to put a summary of the class, an outline, a syllabus, and then if you have created a template, that template will include the entire narrative, so you don't have to type it again if you're going to go conduct the same drill or the same class down the road. And so if you build a template and include a narrative, it will be available for when you create a class from that template. Files allow you to add a file, a URL if the file's too big or you need to link it to your LMS. And so one of the things I've seen people do, so say you're using an LMS right now, you can actually link the class URL here. They would click on it and it will take them directly to their login if they're not already logged into the LMS. You log in, and then as soon as you log in, it launches that class right away. And so that's by putting not the URL for the login page, but the URL for the curriculum, the class within your LMS. I've seen people do that, and that's nice because then all I have to do is click one link and I'm good to go. Task sheets, you can see there's a task sheet uploaded that came, remember, from our settings. One of the tabs up in the settings is where you park all of your task sheets. And then any other documents that may be associated with that class, PDFs, PowerPoints, and so forth. So while it's not a full-blown LMS, you can upload links and documents to supplement the material needed for the class or for the training evolution. So people, let's talk about people. All right, the most important part of training. All right, so lay of the land here. You can add agency personnel. One of the newer things is that, now there's no daily roster here, but what's really great, if you're using our daily roster, and people say, well, I just want to capture I don't want to have to filter by shift and station. I want to know who's on duty today, and that's who took the class. So while I don't have a good example to show you, in this column would be August 22nd roster. I would just filter that, all of the people on duty today, and say it was just one station. I could then filter that station, that roster, check all, add them to the class, and I'm done, mostly. A couple other steps I want to show you. You can check pass, you can insert a grade. They are not required fields. You will want to, this will be blank, and you will want to fill these hours. All right, now if you're using your payroll module to track dollars, you can assign pay grades. But remember, back in payroll, we assigned a default pay grade. This will be 0 for many of you that don't use our payroll module. Those of you that do use the payroll module, there'll be a dollar amount here, a default pay grade. If it's different, you can always change it. If you didn't have that default pay grade, you would have to go in one at a time because it is a required field to capture that pay grade for each person. So we want to save steps whenever possible. The only time you'll have to change this is if it's a different pay grade for whatever reason it might be, you'll have to change it. But typically the default covers it. Don't forget over here on the far left, you've got this expand arrow. This looks at every single training code. Remember back on Info tab? We'll take a peek here. All of these are now available on a per person basis. Why does this matter? Let's say that Shane had to leave due to a family emergency at lunch. Okay, so he got through the first half of the class, but he didn't get to do these others. Not a problem. We just adjust the hours accordingly. Okay, now watch what happens. He goes to 5, everybody else is at 10. By turning on what we did over here in payroll, gives you the power to do that. If you didn't do that, you wouldn't have this option. Okay, and so it gives you the ability to really collect accurate times for participation in any given training code for that class. And it's okay to put a 0 if they weren't there for it. Or like Greg, because Greg is an overachiever, all right, he stuck around afterwards and helped with the mobile water supply, so he got an extra hour. So now the class may be a 10-hour class, but Greg's going to get credit for 11 hours for each of those, well, for the class, but an extra hour for this particular training code. Questions on the People tab? All right, so Michael A's got a question. What if we use payroll for payroll? Not a problem. You'll just capture the number of hours times the pay grade, and that's kind of their total sum for this particular training class. And again, you've got the flexibility to build your pay grades as you see fit. Spencer, when using task sheets, can you pass each person individually? Great question. So they're not necessarily electronic form fillable within the actual training class. You can pass them here and give them a grade on the People tab. On the Files tab, what I have seen people do, and it's a good practice, is you've got this agency task sheet. That's no problem. Go ahead and open this up, and as you're evaluating a person, we'll download it. You can have it as a form fillable PDF. Now, it's not on this particular one, but I can make it a form fillable PDF. Name, ID number, run through it electronically on a tablet, pass, 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 fail, needs improvement, so forth. Save as, okay, save as. Okay, student's name. I'm gonna put it in my downloads. Okay, so then what I can do, now it's all up to the organization because there are going to be some people, well, I don't want everybody seeing my, my scores. You could password protect it and load it, and then you could have that entire class's task sheets uploaded here. So what I will call the template, but the blank task sheet, and then each student listed here. Depending on the sensitivity of what you want to share, if you want to upload it, take that extra step to password protect it, so then just the instructor can then view that PDF. So if this were password protected and I tried to open it, it would not let me open it. Again, that's one way to do it and load it into the actual class. We don't have like actual forms within the training module to use as task sheets like we do for like inspections, for example. All right, then when we're done, we go here. You're going to get this warning. As long as you have the ability to put your password in, you're okay. This is just letting you know that we say this is a 10-hour class, but that Shane had to leave early. He's showing 5. Greg showing an extra hour because he stayed after. This is just giving you a heads up on that. If you are given full permissions, you can put in that you completed and reviewed it. This will take it directly from red to green, or if you don't have those permissions, you can take it to the completed status. I'm going to go ahead and take it all the way to green. And now this class is done, documented. All right, so templates. We need to talk about templates real quick. So there's two ways to do a template. One, you see a class that somebody's already put in, and then this looks good, nice job. Okay, I want to make a template from this class. Okay, I'm going to name this AAA just so I can reference test for Bootcamp. Okay, and I completely goofed there, Mike. I was mistaken. There isn't a narrative tab here for creating a template. So I stand corrected, and the way you would do any kind of text here would be under the objective, which is interesting. I should have known that, and I knew it, I just forgot it. So Mike was asking, how do you save narratives on the build templates? I misspoke. You can't. Okay, so I apologize for that, Mike. But that's this template now, once you've gone through and built it, okay, imagine if we built it from scratch, you then authorize it for future use, just like a class, but we're doing it as a template. And now it's available for use. So now I want to create a class from this template. So instead of having to manually add all the training codes and everything, I can go ahead and click Add Class. Now I'll start here, and I put it at the top of the list, but these are the currently available templates, okay? When I select this, it will name that class for me. I don't want to use that, so I'm going to go 2019-08, today, start time. I can make it recurring, so I want to show you what this recurring looks like. So say I'm scheduling this for A, B, and C shift. I'm going to add class, or different days for volunteer departments. All right, you can see there's red and green going on here. Red means I've got to add an instructor. Now for the first class, you have to add an instructor. That will go green now. This is where the narrative comes in, and I truly apologize for that, Mike. Somehow I thought that tab was available for templates. Insert your narrative. Files. Now files do come over from the template, thankfully. The personnel. Now here's the key. If you don't know who's going to attend the class, when you create or schedule classes, it wants at least one person. What you can do is just put yourself in as the instructor and add, and you'll be good to go until you know who's going to be in. Supposed to accept that. Hold on. Greg, add. And now it's fighting with me. It's only because we're on a demo today. We'll add Trey. Well, if we've discovered a bug, it's only because we're doing a class. All right. We'll add non-agency personnel. Let's try it now. Okay, so weird. Not sure why it's doing that. It could be because I'm in Safari. Sometimes Safari gets a little wonky, but we would add at least one student. We'll go ahead and schedule it. So what I want to show you here is if you're going to have the same class over multiple days, you can go ahead and insert. We're going to do it again on C shift, for example. Holy cow, time's flying. Schedule it. And then back on our table, our main grid, we have today's, tomorrow's, and the next day. And so you can schedule out in advance. So that's kind of the rundown on templates. Now, in the interest of time, I need to show you JPRs. and then a couple reports, and then we'll address the questions that are pending. JPRs, what you need to know about JPRs is the following. They allow you to track required training over a given time period and to ascertain the completion rate of that training requirement. For example, okay, required training. We're going to have it feed the safety analytics gauge, and then you add templates. So here's what I want you to know. You got to have templates built for any other required training, because what this gives you the flexibility to do is say, during this month, I've got to take Hazmat 1, SCBA, and AAA test for Bootcamp. Those are I have to complete those 3 classes. But remember, because they're templates, it doesn't matter when I complete them during the month. I just have to complete them, and the class has to be created from the template. Going to add agency personnel. So the people that have to complete it, let's say it's everybody in the organization. We'll click Save. And now you can see that this first row, the mouse over tells you the classes I need to complete, the name of it, the time frame, the status of the overall JPR. 0 out of 17 people have completed that JPR. And then within that, 0 out of 3, again, because we don't have any completed classes, they have not completed any of the required classes. But as they complete it, you'll see progress made here, and write this number down. Report number 1688 gives you the overall look at your JPR completion status for any given time period. And so you can see, you'll be able to see the template, the class name that the template was based on, the date they completed it, and their percentage towards completion. All right, that's just one of many reports. I need to show you another one. And it's pretty tough to get through the whole training module in an hour. So I want to do this, and then I want to answer questions for everybody. A report that we need to look at is this one. Now, we have 1503 is a really good high-level look at your classes. So for the year, I want to see all personnel, all training codes, or I can refine it down to certain training codes if I wish. I'm going to go show everything so we capture everything. And this will tell me when I took a class, when I completed it, the class name, and the total number of hours of training. Now, what's really nice from this report, and this is a little trick, if you see a name underlined, that's going to run this report, but just for Greg. So we'll give it a second to load. So now I have one that I can show and I can present to Greg. Hey, here's your training for the month, for the year, and so forth. And you can see, because I reviewed that class, it's appearing, the last one I just did, it's appearing in this report, that 10-hour apparatus operator class. Always look in our reports for the little descriptor box, okay? Because only classes that are reviewed, and again, it's clipping it, but only classes that are reviewed. So if you're worried, well, I know I did that class, you'll need to go and check to make sure that it has been reviewed and not just in an incomplete or complete status. Okay, so that gives us the tour of the core elements of the training module. We've got about 6 minutes left. The last thing I want to mention, and then we're going to answer questions, is under pending requests. You can actually, if you're a firefighter in your department and you see, man, I need to take this class, you can click into it, request to sign up, send an email, and through the message center to the instructor, to your boss, that you'd like to take this class. We'll send that request. Now there'll be an additional pending request here as a instructor or training officer. There's the one I just requested. You have the option to approve it or decline it because the class is full. But once you approve it, look what happens. It automatically adds that person to that class. There's a bug going on right now in this particular account. It should have added me and it didn't, but it will. And I should be able to prove it in another account because I don't like to show something without it being correct. Okay, so I want to take this class. Pending request should show me up here. I've been approved. It goes off the list. Go back to that class. And if all is working like it's supposed to, I should be on that list. Yay, there it is. That's me. I'm logged in as a support tech. And so it's working. So Greg broke his account. All right, so that covers the core of what I wanted to address today as far as our training module, the elements of NFPA 1401 that it applies to, and kind of how you want to set up the account, work with the account, build templates, use our JPRs, and then pending requests. We have ample documentation and other videos, and this will be available on our YouTube channel within the next couple of hours if you need to review, but we have a lot of documentation on the training module by simply clicking into the support button here. Okay, so let's go through some questions now. All right, so Mike, thank you for your patience and understanding with my goof there on the narratives. Is there a way to select from shift instead of going through add agency personnel and selecting individually? Albert, do you mean here on adding to a class? Because I can filter down by any combination of these columns to add to a class. So if I wanted to, I could just say I want B shift, and again, there's just one person. Let's pick group one. There's more people, so that particular shift I can filter down and then pick people and add them to the class as I see fit. And that, if you've got a hundred person department, you want to use these filters because you do not want to be scrolling through a massive list of personnel. So for NFPA, can we attach skill sheets? This is from Spencer. Can we attach the skill sheets and just state all that have passed? Absolutely, that should work. Okay, you can do that, yes. That should be good. Now, one thing you might want to consider is at least having, if you're doing handwritten task sheets, store them somewhere in case there's ever an audit of the class. You know, I always like to default to more documentation rather than less, just in case an auditing body comes in and wants to check on my performance as an organization. And ISO here is getting a little more critical and more in-depth as to the completion of training records. So you're never going to hurt by having more training records, in my opinion, at least from the experience I'm seeing now, especially with accreditation and ISO. What does enable hourly payroll for training and payroll settings do? Good question. Let's go back there. So right here, in payroll you mean. Let's see, enable hourly payroll. That's payroll. Yep. Okay, so right here, what this does, what I want, those of you that are using the payroll module, it does it this way. Turning this on allows what I just showed you in training to add hours and associate it with the dollar amount, so then you can run a report to how much is being spent on payroll for training activity. If you're not using our payroll module, you still want to check this because it gives you that power to adjust with that. And again, our developers figured this out when they built this, and by turning this on, it gives you the ability to do this. All right, even if you're not using it to track all dollars per training event, it gives you this flexibility right here. okay, with the, again, I don't have the training codes in here for this class, but it allows you to modify per, let's go back, it allows you to do this. You have multiple training codes. It allows you to refine how many hours were spent for each training code. Yeah, there's something buggy going on this. Find the other one. All right, and guys, I know we're at the top of the hour. I've just got a couple more questions to answer. So I want to thank all of you for joining me today. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. We're going to talk about ISO success. Where in our system helps you satisfy an ISO audit? That'll be next Thursday, okay? And so I know your days are full and you might need to get going. So if you have to go, I understand. I'm going to answer the remaining questions, and we'll hopefully see you all next week. Thanks for taking time out of your day today, everybody. I hope it was valuable for you, and we'll see you again soon. Questions on, so what it does, Michael, is it gives you this flexibility. Right here. Without that turned on, you won't be able to do this. Adjust hours on a per training code basis. How would you recommend, Mike's asking, to save a narrative for a class template that you know everyone will be taking into the department? Okay, so what I would recommend is this. Because when you build a template, you can't have a narrative. What you could do is in the library, in Word documents, load up all your narratives that would be applicable to classes, and then when they go and create the class from a template, all they would have to do is copy and paste into the narrative here. So in other words, you'd have a Word document that is relevant for apparatus operator template. When they go to create the class from the template, they can then just paste that narrative here. Although I think it's a great feature request to have the narrative available with the template. So that's something I'll pass on to our development team. Best report from Michael. Michael A, best report for total training hours in the department by month. It appears that with 1503, you would have to add up each person's hours one at a time. So yeah, so reports, excuse me, let's see here. You want total hours. And I know there's one, 1716 is one you're going to want to look at. Take a look at 1716 for total training hours. So under training codes, John says we have categories for ISO, but we do not have that category under class category or standards. Yeah, that could be the case, John. I would have to see your account. So if you want to shoot me an email, tom@emergencyreporting.com, I can take a peek for you and see what's going on and maybe give you some recommendations. Also, I know a lot of people had to peel off. Don't forget those handouts that I provided you guys. Okay, let's see. Can you select personnel for a class in the class template? No, because it's meant to be built as a template to where then it can be used for any students at any time whenever you want to create a class from that template. It doesn't lock it down per person there. You add the personnel when you create the class from a template, Todd. Good question. No, Scott, you didn't miss it. Did you cover how to import the training codes into the system? I can tell you in a nutshell, those templates, once filled out, has to be sent to our implementation team because the training code import is not a customer-facing import. It's something we have to do on our end. So you didn't miss anything at all. Sean and Bill, you're very welcome. Glad it worked out. I'm glad you had a good, worthwhile hour today. You could, Spencer, you could put the needed narrative in the objective field as an option, and that is part of the template. So you certainly could do that. Yep, 1716, right on, Mike, for that report you were looking for. And Mike, I will absolutely, I'm going to write it down now, narrative in templates, and I'll see if there's even a user story on that on our team, if that's something they'd be willing to entertain. All right, you are welcome, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we're good. We're just 5 minutes over, and thanks again for taking time out of your busy schedule. We'll catch you again next Thursday for week 5 of our summer boot camp.